What is going on, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the weekly live news and Q&A show for Amazon sellers. I'm Chris Grant, along with my co-host, the super vicanius Chris Rasick. What's going on, man? How you doing this week?
It sounds like I need an ointment or something for that.
Right?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Can't complain, man. It's been a good week so far. Today, as usual, we're going to chat a few pieces of that are news of interest to Amazon sellers. And of course, we're going to take your guys' questions about anything relating to Amazon, online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, you name it, you can shoot it at us and we will offer you our unvarnished opinion. But before we dive in, we'd love to tell you a little bit about this week's sponsor, which is OA Leads Pro. Happens to be a friend of ours, Eli Glakowski. If you're looking for a high quality, manually sourced lead list, you should probably check out what Eli's got going on. He offers mixed lead lists that have everything from grocery, shoes, beauty, and toys to beauty focused or beauty only lead lists. And there's an array of options in the number of sellers on the list. You can go all the way down to 10 sellers being on the list to a maximum of 25, depending on what list you choose. And lead lists, they get a bad rap, in my opinion. A lot of people, oh, well, the price tanked and things like that. And in my opinion, lead lists, in most cases, there are some that are absolute garbage. We know that. But there are others that are good quality lead lists that offer you a look into where you can source, what kind of sales you could take advantage of, and where you can rabbit trail off of if they're used properly. Plus, they are a great way to build up a database of old leads. But if you're interested in checking them out, head over to cleartheshelf.com/leads and see if there's anything of interest for you guys. But now let's dive into some news. So the biggest piece of news, in my opinion, at least to Amazon sellers, is probably going to be some more changes to Nike ungating. It's been a very interesting ride. It's something I haven't really seen before. Typically if things get gated, then it kind of swings back the other direction in a couple of weeks. Or we get a notification that says, hey, you need to sell out of everything because this is closed off. And that warning may be 24 hours from now, or it may be 2 months from now, depending on what kind of mood Amazon's in that particular day. However, with Nike, it's been very interesting to see. It seemed like a couple of weeks ago, or maybe in, early May or something like that, Nike became gated for newer sellers. And at the time, I was ungated, but many new sellers could not even request to become ungated. Chris got ungated, like it seems to be right before all of that mess happened. And then it sort of seemed that was just going to be the way it is. But now it seemed to swing back the other direction, but in a weird way. You're still ungated. Is that correct in Nike?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I just checked.
I have not sold Nike in a very long time. It's not something I look for, not something I'm really interested in. I have been regated for Nike. Matter of fact, just yesterday, I went and bought 10 items from a retailer to get ungated in Nike. And I'm going to go through the whole process. I'm going to document all of it. This is exactly what I did, how I did it, etc., to show that it can be done. And what's interesting is they specifically said in my application for ungating, you can submit invoices or receipts. The word receipts was right there. I've never seen it before. But then I have seen from other sellers that they're asking for invoices like normal. However, after they submit the invoices, they then also have to go through a verification interview. They've actually got to hop on video with somebody. So it's very interesting, and I don't know if that's just for accounts under a certain age. I don't know if that's for people who've never been ungated in Amazon or in Nike in the past. I can't quite make sense of it. I'm curious as to what's going on because it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't compute for me.
Yeah, I think it's addition. You remember the Twilight Zone when William Shatner keeps seeing the guy out on the wing and he's ripping the wires. Like I picture something
Yeah.
like that going on in the back doors, back offices of Amazon. It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. I can't even. Usually with this stuff, you can draw some sort of conclusion, some sort of logical conclusion. Not in this case. I haven't come up with anything so far.
No. I sort of like the verification. I'm not against it. You know, if Amazon wants to make sure that there are not getting any counterfeit products onto the platform, one, I'm all for it because it's good for the consumer. What's good for the consumer is good for the seller, whether or not sellers like it. And the other thing is honestly, it would probably limit competition a bit. You're going to get the bad actors out, the ones who do drive the prices down insanely bad. And two, there might just be people who are like, you know what, this seems like too much of a hurdle. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to go another direction. I'm cool on both of those fronts.
Yeah, those are pretty nice bright sides.
Right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hope I don't get regated in Nike. I'm a couple weeks away from making a trip to an outlet.
Right? Yeah, that would be. Hopefully, mine goes through one shot. I want it. I'm gonna make sure that I do everything like by the book, 100%. No shortcuts. And I'm hoping that it's a one shot, one kill kind of thing. But I'm gonna report back on everything, what happens.
You're not gonna do any shady things like you normally do. You made a point to say 100% by the book. Then that implies it's not always the case.
Right? I'd like to think I'm 90% by the book. You got to know all the rules so you can bend the right ones. So the next piece of news, and this isn't so much news for Amazon sellers. This is just something I found fascinating since we're in the retail business. We're in the retail space. I'm curious. Maybe you know the answer to this question, but what brand do you think has a larger gross merchandise volume every year? Do you think it's Nike or Kirkland? And if you're not familiar, I know you know what Kirkland is, but for those of you who are watching, if you're not familiar with Kirkland, that happens to be Costco's store brand. So if there was, if there's something similar, you're looking at Equate from Walmart, Good and Gather from Target. But Chris, what do you think? Do you think Nike sells more every year or Kirkland sells more every year?
I mean, I would have guessed Nike, and I would have been confident in my answer. I mean, you shared the doc with me, so it's kind of cheating, but
True.
because we only got our first Costco just a few months ago here.
Okay.
So I mean, it was before that. I think we would have had to drive about an hour. So, it was never in the fold. So, then maybe that's a little, kind of self-absorbed and, in my own little bubble. But yeah, I mean, we're not small. I mean, we're I mean, Akron's only 15 miles north, and so it's not like we're a little podunk city that, I mean, I think we tend to get franchises probably, all things equal in the middle of their exposure, so I don't think we were late to get a Costco. So that's surprising because I'm picturing limited accessibility, across the US.
Exactly. That was my thought too. I was thinking it's got to be Nike. Nike's got to be bigger, but it's not. Kirkland
It's amazing.
sells $56 billion a year compared to Nike's $51.59 billion per year. The Kirkland brand, okay, is bigger than United Airlines, bigger than Coca-Cola. Okay.
Incredible.
I would have never thought that. And if you want to add in the Kirkland brand gasoline, because technically their gasoline is private label, it is a store brand, although just like all of their other store brand products, it is formulated by another company. You'd be adding in another 24 billion onto that $56 billion number just by itself.
That's almost equally impressive that they're selling $24 billion in gasoline.
I can't. It's insane to me. It's insane to me because I refuse to sit in those lines.
Right.
And I said something about that once on Twitter, and I got really shouted down and said I was stupid, for not going at off times and things like that. But yeah, it's a 15-minute drive to save 15 cents. I don't think that the return on time invested makes sense. But
Right.
that's another argument. Now, I did want to go a little bit further into this Kirkland brand thing, because even though Kirkland is a larger brand overall, it does not necessarily translate to sales on Amazon. And I as soon as I read this, I got curious. I went over to Smart Scout, which will estimate the monthly gross merchandise volume of brands on Amazon. And in my opinion, it probably underestimates a little bit. So take these numbers with a grain of salt. But Smart Scout estimates Nike to be at approximately $40 million in sales monthly on the Amazon platform, while Kirkland, across its couple of brands that is on Amazon, look to be about $8.5 million each month on Amazon. And so my thought then was, it's either, okay, people just understand that they can go to Costco for these items, and maybe they like to go to Costco. And who doesn't want to go grab a hot dog and a drink for $1.50 and maybe some free samples? Or there's a massive opportunity here in the fact that maybe a lot of these Kirkland branded products are not represented on the Amazon platform yet. And if they're created by third-party sellers, maybe there is a way to make a little bit of money there. Because the one thing that both of these brands have in common is that they're mainly sold by third-party sellers on Amazon.
Right. That's the hidden gem. $40 million a month in Nike branded items sold on Amazon every month versus 8.5 million Kirkland branded items every month on Amazon. Like that's
right.
So
with
you have
similar market caps of both products in the real world.
Right. I mean, that screams major opportunity. And that's in it. So $40 million a month. So that's $480 million a year, $500 million essentially. So $500 million and Nike's number was $51.5 billion annually, right?
Yep.
Wow. So and only $500 million of that. So they're selling $51 billion outside of Amazon. These numbers are mind-boggling.
Right. Yeah. All I need is like 0.1% every single year in sales, like, of their sales. And I am totally happy.
I tell you, it's totally worth it for somebody to go into, like Keepa and narrow down Kirkland, and see if, I don't know, you probably compare it to the website or something and, see exactly what is on Amazon already and try to find some holes. I mean, that's probably a worthwhile venture. It would take some time and a little bit of deep research, but that could seriously pay off for somebody willing to put that work in.
Yeah, absolutely. And GSD, I want to shout you out for a second because you're always here, so I appreciate you. But you bring up a good point. Can a third party seller even create a new listing for Kirkland? I'm not 100% sure. In the past, would have been no problem whatsoever. Amazon has gotten a little bit more difficult, and I did not go in and check to see if I could create a listing for Kirkland, but I would imagine that you might be able to. We just have to go and test it out. But even if you can't, there are ways to properly get around that, which that'd be a whole long rabbit trail to go into, and we'd need another hour or so. But there are ways around it where it could still work in the seller's favor. So
now you said you were 90% by the book. Is this that 10% kind of sneaking out?
Maybe this is one of those rules that you can bend without getting in any trouble, just due to the overwhelming number of people that do it and do it at massive scale. Yeah. No. All right. Next thing on the docket for today is back to school. And I know your kids are out of school as of last week, or does one of them finish this week?
No, last week was it, and I can't wait for them to go back.
It doesn't take long, does it? So my kids are out of school. They've been out of school for a couple of weeks now, but it is already time to start thinking back to school, either because you're pulling what's left of your hair out because they never stop wanting something, or it's kind of like, well, we've already run out of activities and my snack budget is already gone for the summer. But I found some interesting things, and they don't have the numbers for this year out yet. So I wanted to share the numbers for last year. All right. And because we are in the retail space, it is time for us to start thinking about the next season. The next biggest season is going to be back to school. So there are some numbers from 2023 that I found, and I expect these numbers to be bigger in 2024, whether that's because of inflation, but also just because the numbers always seem to go up and to the right. But total back-to-school spending in 2023 was $41.5 billion. That's up from $36.9 billion in 2022. I highly doubt we're going to see that big of a jump this year, because I don't know. I mean, what? $4 billion, almost $5 billion jump in a single year seems to be a pretty massive jump. Now, as of early July, this is 2023, more than half, or 55% of the consumers who are buying for back to school said that they already started shopping. So, to be quite honest, if you've not already started looking for products to sell for back to school, by now you're already late. We've got a couple of things going in our favor. Number one, 55% of consumers say they already start shopping for back to school in early July. Number two, we have got people who are going to be taking advantage of Prime Day in early July. So we're going to have an increased number of eyeballs on the Amazon platform. And of course, they're going to be looking for deals, but they're going to load up their cart with other junk just because they're already on the platform. And maybe they're waiting between now and Prime Day to actually make some big purchases. So they've got, that money burning a hole in their pocket. Now, that number, that 55% of consumers, it was on par from 2022, but it's up 44% since 2019. So we see a very obvious trend of consumers buying earlier and earlier for some of these major shopping events. All right. The other thing to notice, which is interesting, is that even though consumers start shopping early July, 85% of those consumers said that they still have at least 50% of their shopping left to do. So that doesn't mean you need to blow the whole budget to make sure that you're in stock early July. You're also going to have a little bit of a longer tail through about the middle of August, where people will be buying back to school items. Okay. The other thing I found interesting is that families with children in elementary through high school in 2023 plan to spend an average of $890 per household on back to school items. That means clothes, shoes, trapper keepers, backpacks, all that stuff. Right. That was approximately $25 more than what they spent in 2022. And I expect it to be more this year. I would imagine it gets over $900 per household this year. But one of the things that I don't think a lot of people talk about is college students and their families expected to spend an average of $1,366 per person, which is up from $1,200 in 2022. And since 2019, back to college spending has nearly doubled. Now they don't go in and say, is that because parents and students are both spending their own money, or anything like that. But one of the things that I find interesting from this number is that you don't have to just buy paper, pens, markers, crayons. Okay. You don't have to only buy computers and calculators, but with back to college kids, hot plates or whatever they call them now, dorm room decor, sheets, pillows, the number of items that you can buy that people are going to then purchase from you becomes much broader than what it might be if you just think about the kids going back to high school or elementary school.
Yeah, you throw in the medicine cabinet, anything in the bathroom, throw in organizers, closet organizers, because you have to maximize what little space that the dormitories give you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how what do you think the Amazon fees are on a mini fridge? Like that's
That's a
those
good
sales
question.
spiked.
Applying well, what about kegerators?
Right.
I mean,
You
had I gone to
gotta sneak
college,
that
that would
in.
have been that's true. That would have been way more important to me than any laptop or anything.
Yeah, we actually had we didn't go the kegerator route. We had this this trunk that we used as a coffee table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every weekend we would move the trunk in and out, but it was filled. We could fit 6 cases of Busch beer if we took them out of the box into this trunk. So the people in our dorm, the RAs and all the they saw us move this trunk literally every single weekend up and down the stairs. They never caught on.
That's insane. I
That is.
did not peg you for a Busch latte drinker in college.
My tastes have expanded since. I just kind of went with what we had at the time. So
I figured you would have been throwing back some stones or something.
I would have been hip to that too. So the quality, it wasn't a quality thing. That's not what it wasn't what we were looking for.
No. Now we're gonna go off the reservation here if we're not careful.
We can't deteriorate into college stories, right? But that's that's interesting. Like, so basically you see, it feels like the season is expanding, right? Like back to school is its own season almost, right? And then in addition to that, not only is it longer, the revenue's going up as well. I mean, it's surprising. I mean, my default setting is I just basically keep buying what I buy. I don't do a bunch of seasonal purchases or very little, get some Christmas stuff but largely I just kind of run by the same playbook no matter what time of year it is. And I kind of just take residual boosts in sales based on increased eyeballs, over Q4 and back to school and Prime Day and all that stuff. But this is making a serious case to take back to school more seriously.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, there's there are 3 big holidays that people spend money for, all in Q4. We've got Christmas. Christmas is massive. I think the number is in 2022, I think it was 936 billion is what was spent in holiday spending. I'm not sure if that's worldwide or just the US. That's just a very, very quick Google search. Halloween, on the other hand, which is the 3rd largest holiday that people spend money on, is only 12 billion. So this is an order of magnitude larger than Halloween, and Amazon sellers love spending on Halloween, So
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. This last one, and then we'll get to your guys' questions. So if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. We are going to get to those. But this last one is something, I don't know. It's stupid in my opinion. But apparently, porch pirates have been watching. And is that still a PC term? Are we still allowed to call them porch pirates?
It almost doesn't sound like it. They're criminals. What are they? Like if they're offended, who cares?
That's true. But apparently, porch pirates have been watching too many Scooby-Doo reruns and taken a little bit of a play out of their book, out of the bad guys' books, by having disguises. Now, I've actually seen several videos on social media of people stepping up to porches with like boxes over their heads to cover their face. I saw one person who was inside of one of those large orange traffic barrels walk up to someone's porch and take the box. But apparently, some people are actually now buying Amazon vests, those blue vests that your Amazon driver wears, and they're walking right up to people's porches, oftentimes wearing like a face mask. And they're just taking an empty box, dropping it down, and then taking the box that's full of stuff back to their vehicle to take home with them. And as soon as I read this article, I was like, there's no way it could be that easy to buy an Amazon vest. Like, Amazon's got to have some controls in place.
You think so?
$30 on eBay. A $30 investment, and I could go take my neighbors for all of their electronics that they order. So I bought one. I didn't actually buy one, but
porch pirates would be really disappointed in my house.
Right.
Think of all the return. Like they're probably doing me a favor. Maybe I'll post next week. I can post my address and just kind of like, take it. Just bypass the death pile altogether.
You've written it off already. Why not? Now you don't have to process it. That seems like a positive return on the time invested, in my opinion.
Yeah. Save on razor blades, save on side-eye for my wife. I mean, it's good all the way around.
Exactly. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into some questions. We had Haven Gear. Haven Gear actually asked this at 3:30 this afternoon. So hopefully you weren't waiting around for us to get started. But if you had to choose one method to grow your online arbitrage business the fastest, would it be storefront stalking or manual sourcing or KPF searches or something entirely different? Please elaborate if you can. So one, I want to hit this point first. The fastest is not always necessarily the best. So, there's good growth, and then there's not so good growth. And oftentimes we see fast growth coupled with it not being so good, meaning profits aren't there and that kind of thing. My opinion is there's always a sale going on somewhere. So I would probably default to looking for sales that are happening and sourcing those sales as much as I possibly can until I find the handful of stores that I can source on a regular basis and do it profitably if I wanted to do it the absolute fastest. That's not a knock on storefront stalking. It's not a knock on KPF searches. It's just that there is always a sale. Walmart has them all the time, Target, Walgreens. I mean, they're just everywhere all the time. They never go away. And if you couple that with going out and looking for extra discount codes you can stack on top, extra discounted gift cards, you can really build that margin, because margins are, in my opinion, margins are manufactured. They're not just found. So that's probably what I would do personally. What about you?
Okay, so the question is, if you had to choose one method, you had to choose just one to grow an OA business the fastest. And this isn't, I don't mean to circle back, but I would go with a lead list. I'd get on a very small distribution, one of those 10, 15, probably no more than 20, so that I could trust. Because if you want to grow your business the fastest, I assume that piggybacks with you're going to turn over your inventory very fast as well, right? Because that's, I don't know how you have one without the other. You're kind of chopping yourself off at the knees if you don't do both at the same time. So, so if you get on and I don't know if people agree with me or not, but I think once you get under 20 sellers on a lead list, I think it's safe to buy the product itself. Because we discussed this a couple of years ago, and we haven't really visited it since. But well, I'll just ask you again: if there are 20 people on a lead list, and no particulars, it just on the surface, how many of those subscribers do you think are buying the lead on average out of those 20? Because the answer is not 20, right?
No, it's definitely not 20. I have a little bit of an advantage here. I'm going to say 40%. I think 40% of them, so less than 10, are probably buying the exact lead you're looking at. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't fit their own criteria. It fits the criteria of the list they're on, but it doesn't fit their criteria. Maybe it's a brand that they're gated in. Maybe it's a category they're gated in, or there's something else that, turns them off from it. But I think 40%. Oh, and the other thing is, it's amazing how many people pay for lead lists and do not open them when they get them.
Yeah, I actually get those open rates. I was shocked. I actually checked to make sure my delivery method was functioning properly. Yeah, I mean, you could be gated. If there's a bundle in there, somebody may not want to take the prep cost, because my prep center sucks doing bundles, multi-units. They may pass because of that. If there's a hazmat lead on it, not everyone's going to be able to buy it. Chances are, so that's 40% is 8 people, right? And you can't sit there and say, I want to buy this product and I can't withstand 7 additional sellers coming on it. I mean, if your sourcing is that fragile, you're not having a good time. Like, you can pretty much absorb, even if we, for the sake of argument, say it's 50%, and there are 9 other sellers, so a total of 10 people are buying it, right? So anyway, so all right, so back to that. I mean, I would use a lead list, because you have, you get fresh leads, so you can buy those, you can rabbit trail off of those, you can grab the codes and go to the websites and try to apply the code that they may have used on other products, even not just rabbit trailing the actual category, the product itself. You could rabbit trail the entire store, right? And then storefront stock from there. But I mean, as far as like the absolute fastest, it's a lead list in my opinion.
Yeah, I think your answer was much better than mine. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so there was a follow-up to this question. So when you found a good OA item on a site, have you ever contemplating buying all remaining inventory as a way to prevent price tanking? Less sellers will have the product, therefore less tanking. Now, no. I thought about it? Okay. Yes, I have thought about it. But do I think this is a good thing to do in practice? No. I don't. And here's my opinion. And I will live and die by this for as long as I can. I think anyway. I don't think that you should be putting too much of your capital into any one particular product. Now, you can choose what that number is. If you want it to be 1% of your capital or 5% of your capital, I would never say go more than 10% of your capital into any one product, because no matter what, there are things you cannot control. All right. I talked about it earlier this morning when I was recording some tactical arbitrage stuff. There are black swan events. Okay. And when most people think about black swan events, they think about bad things, but black swan events can go both directions. There can be a black swan event that you just have no idea about, and it causes a positive thing for your business, where maybe the prices go up because the velocity increases like crazy, and that's a good thing. But the exact opposite can happen too. Amazon can come on the listing and absolutely crater the price because they don't need to make a profit. The CEO could do something dumb, and everyone could decide not to buy their product anymore. There have been a couple of companies that have lost billions in market cap within the past year for short periods of time, just because they've done things that the public didn't care for. And then the other thing is you can't say for sure that someone might not be able to get it somewhere else. Maybe someone buys a pallet or 2 pallets of gray market goods of these same particular items. Okay. If they're buying gray market, chances are they're getting priced better than you can, and they bring those to market. And you cannot know for sure. So I do not think that you should go and buy out a particular retailer, especially since I could probably find another retailer who's selling it.
Or, yeah, I mean, obviously, we have to talk about the scale, I mean, because there's, no two products are going to be the same. If it's the type of thing where, well, hey, I'm going to buy 20 of these, but you have to buy 100 to buy them out. I mean, then, yeah, what you said about your numbers, I mean, that's crazy. And then what happens if Amazon stocks it? And so but overall, like, I don't think anyone should source scared. Right. And that's essentially what it is. I don't price tanking or the potential to price tank. That's not part of my research when I'm looking at a product, and I don't want to take the time. Like, you get to a point where you want to be as efficient as possible. Right. So if you're sitting there kind of gnashing your teeth over the likelihood that it's going to tank or not, that's time you could have been finding something else. You should only source according to your own parameters. If it meets your guidelines of what you like to sell and what the numbers that you like to see, you can't control the price tanking, right? I mean, it's, you can skip some stuff because they have high return rates. Like, that's, that can be you have to account for like returns or something, but price tanking, you can't predict it, so it's outside of your control. It shouldn't influence your purchases, your sourcing, and like you said, I mean, absolutely, it's a capital issue from there if you're trying to prevent it. I think you just, you have your criteria. If it meets it, buy it, move on to the next. And I mean, that's where you're making your money, and it's impossible to calculate what a potential price tank would be, what its effect would be on your numbers. So just keep sourcing, just keep going.
Yep. What's next? Question: do I need a real credit card for a seller account, or is a debit card okay? So you do need something that has a credit card processor attached to it. So when I first got started with Amazon, my credit was, garbage. Like, I'm not sure it was 3 digits. So what I did is I had a bank that offered a debit card that was a Visa debit card. it came out of my bank account and all that stuff, but it had the Visa logo on it, and I was able to use that. I would imagine you could still do that to this day. I can't say 100% for sure or not. A credit card's going to be better, but there are ways around it. Alonzo, how would you use Keepa to find products with prices tanking and seller count rising for an A to A flip? I would just use the drop percentages is what I would do. In the pricing drop percentages, especially under the new offer, you can say, hey, I want to see the items that have dropped over the past 7 days by, say, 40 to 70%, and that would show you where prices are coming down. And you could do the exact opposite for the new offer count. You could say, hey, show me the items that have gone up in the number of sellers, over the past 7 days. Is there a 7-day one for? Let me double check and make sure there's a 7-day for new offer count. But in the new offer count, you could, let me search this here. New offer. There we go. Yeah, there is. So in the 7-day drop percentage under new offer count, you would actually use a negative. So you'd say, hey, show me the items that have a new or a 7-day drop percentage in the new offer count from, let's say, -70 to -30. And that would give you the products that have increased in the number of offers from 30 to 70%.
And then stalk all those people once you find the 8A flippers, because they tend to travel in groups.
Right. Margie, which retail outlet do you use to ungate Nike? I'm not going to say quite yet. Let me go through the whole process, and then I'll say everything, because I didn't use one of the ones that everyone's says. Everyone's like, oh, use Champs, or I miss East Bay. But
yeah,
I use,
was it ASOS?
ASOS? Okay,
yeah,
is that
that's
right?
what I use.
Yeah. So I used one that's a little off the beaten path. It's not going to be a profitable product. It's not like I'm saving some, but I just want to see if one that is lesser known actually works. And that's why I chose this, no matter what. Let's see here. Bow-tied Mutt. What's up, guys? Doing my first RA run today at Walmart, Marshalls, Ross. Any general tips? Maybe specifically relating to only using Seller Amp and not having Keepa. Well, the very first tip is get yourself a Keepa subscription. Seller Amp is great. I know that they have, I know they have the Keepa data on there and all that stuff, but you need Keepa. Period. It's going to cost you about $20 a month. Outside of that, the number one tip for retail arbitrage is, in my opinion, aggressive patience. I happened to run into a Ross a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed a guy who was scanning. I can't remember what app he had. I think he was actually using the Amazon app, but I happened to just peek over his shoulder, and I saw that he was scanning items. He was actually scanning hats and socks. Totally happy for him. The problem is he was scanning 2 items and then moving down 5 feet, scanning another 2 items and moving down 5 feet. And I'm like, dude, I wanted to go over and shake him. But I was with my wife, and I also didn't want to be a weirdo. The thing is, you need to stand in one spot, get comfortable being uncomfortable, and scan every single item, and not just the UPC. Scan the UPC. If you find something, great. Then take a minute, type in the title of the product, and see what else is out there. Are there bundles? Are there multi-packs that are not coming up with the UPC? you'll be surprised how much profit there is by not only scanning UPCs. Problem is it takes a lot of time to do this. When we did a lot of RA, I would go and I would spend an hour in each beauty aisle. So if there's 4 beauty aisles, I'd spend 4 hours at store number 1, and then I have myself a shopping list. These are what I'm buying. Let's go to the next store. Let's put all of those in the cart. And then let's look for things that we haven't seen at any other stores, or things where the prices are different, because your cost of goods sold are not going to be the same at Marshall's number 1 as it might be at Marshall's number 2.
Yeah, that is such a big tip, to type in the titles instead of just trusting the UPCs. I can't tell you how many, if I walk out of a store with 2 cartfuls, almost half of it has been found by typing it in when a UPC scan didn't show up. So
absolutely,
so not only are you doubling your sourcing, getting more inventory for the time spent, even though you're spending a little bit more because it's going to take a little bit more time. You also know that most sellers aren't typing in the titles. Like this is, it's so true. The extra mile is never crowded, right? So if you go there, you're going to have these products insulated. It's a bit of a moat. If there's popular products and whatnot, the majority of sellers aren't going to find it. So, but you'll be in on it, and you'll have a crack at whatever they have on the shelf.
Yep. All right, Margie. We tried to use multi-channel fulfillment yesterday to fulfill an FBM order we had by using our FBA inventory. They estimated delivery time was 20 days away. Do you have any tips for using MCF successfully? I was wondering how long it normally takes for Amazon to process and ship an MCF order. How do we confirm the shipment if we don't get a tracking number in time for the ship by date? I looked online, but the info was rather vague. I have never used, that's not true. I've used MCF one time in 10 years of selling on Amazon. It's always been a garbage program. And it's because Amazon doesn't seem to prioritize it over their FBA products, which makes sense. FBA is what's most important. People that bought directly on Amazon. MCF seems to have been built for the brand owners who want to use FBA as their fulfillment channel for like Shopify websites or maybe eBay sales. I think that they've changed it so that you can choose faster options for shipping within the multi-channel fulfillment, but you have to pay for it. So it doesn't end up really making a whole lot of sense when you can just merchant fulfill it yourself for typically a whole lot cheaper. But how long it normally takes, you're probably spot on with the 20 days. It's just not fast. And there's no way to confirm the shipment if you don't have that tracking number, at least not within Amazon terms of service. So I would never MCF items that I have listed as FBM. You'd want to have those in hand. Do you have any free in-depth Keepa training videos? Where can I find those? The keyword there was free. There are some on my YouTube channel. I know that I've talked about Keepa, but there's only so much depth I can go into when it comes to YouTube. I'm going to be honest with you. I've got a thing called Keepa Academy. It's fairly inexpensive, and it should make you an absolute badass with Keepa, but it's not free because honestly, it's 10 years worth of knowledge in an 8-hour course. And so we did not make it free. As FBM, do you ever compete directly with the buy box if it's held by FBA, or do you always price your FBM lower than FBA? This is something I talked about a little bit earlier today. So, dude, maybe we need to do a a podcast episode on what the buy box is and what what kind of things are taken into account. Here's the issue. All right. You do not necessarily have to be priced with an FBA seller or lower than an FBA seller to get merchant fulfilled sales. There's not one buy box. Okay. There are regional buy boxes. Okay. And I don't know how regional it gets, because I don't have a large enough network to say, hey, can I have 100 people in the Orlando area look at the exact same listing at the exact same time and see how many different sellers or price points there are. But I have had people across the country go and look at the same product, and everyone has gotten a different seller in the buy box and a different price. What goes into account with the buy box is price, of course. But the other thing is the speed to the customer. So if you're doing 0-day handling on your FBM products and you have it set so that you ship next day, especially like for me, if I do 0-day handling and I'm willing to ship the same day where the person who's in Florida will get it the next day, and I do that for free, chances are I get a fair amount of sales in Florida, especially near me, for people buying that particular product, even if I were priced right at the FBA price or even a little bit above. Because speed is what Amazon's looking for. It seems even more than just, FBA or FBM. So personally, I would at least start with the FBA price and only move it down if I wasn't making sales within a couple of days, not within a couple of hours, a couple of days. How many TA minutes have you guys been putting up for the month? I have not looked. I've not looked recently.
Where do they show you now? I know it's not on that main page, right?
It is not on the main page. It might be in the set. I don't know. I'll have to go find it. I know it's somewhere around still, and that's why I haven't looked, because it's not right in your face anymore.
Yeah, I don't. Is it? No, it's not there. I know I saw it once, but I didn't make a note of where it moved to. I don't know. Short answer is a lot from me.
Yeah, you might as well be running those reverse searches all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just constantly. I mean, I have more times than not. I've got searches in queue waiting to be up next. So
nice.
Trying to take full advantage of the change.
So Amazon Con, I found a clothing item that has several variations and ranked 16,000. Estimated sales are over 1,000, and are the variations with 1% reviews still selling? So it depends. All right. And you're going to make me do some math here, which I really don't care to do. But let's just say that the 1,000 estimation is correct. It's not, by the way. That 1,000 number is not correct. But if it gets 1% of the reviews, that means you're going to get 10 sales per month on that particular variation. All right. But what's more important is you need to look at the recency and frequency of those reviews. Has it gotten 1% of total reviews, but the last time it got a review was 6 months ago? Then it's very possible that variation could be overpriced and it stops selling quite as much. Has it gotten 1% of the reviews and the entire listing is 4,000 days old? Well, that variation with 1% of the reviews is 500 days old. Chances are it's actually selling more than 1% because it's a much younger variation than the parent ASIN. So it's not it's not as straightforward as some like to make it seem when it comes to variations. There are a few nuances that you need to think about, but chances are, if it has some of the sales, it is probably still selling, especially if it's priced appropriately or in line with the other products on that or the other variations on that listing.
Yeah, Margie and Flamingo Flyby, they said it's on a new dashboard, so I switched over to that, and I have 6 days left to go before I reset, and I have 85,000 scan minutes used.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Luke is dropping some au jus in the comments here. Trade secret, but I find less people seem to buy the higher priced leads, and I can vouch for buying items straight off a lead list. I just like to go shallow. I agree with the shallow part. I also agree with the higher priced items. That definitely scares people away.
It does. In the mastermind, we had a longtime seller. I mean, he had like 10 years in the game, and was right around $1 million. Vast majority of it was RA, I believe, and he was scared of high price stuff. He said like, oh, one return and you're wrecked. And it's like, I mean, how does that, how is that different than 5 returns on regular price stuff? But you're going to buy more units. If you look at it from the same dollar amount, it's flawed logic, I thought.
I would agree with that. How do you add a product with a variation that is deactivated? I don't think you mean deactivated. I think you mean out of stock. The easiest place to go is to use Amazon's variation wizard. Go into Seller Central, and in the search bar, type in variation wizard, and you should be able to get the information there. Otherwise, you might be able to find it on Keepa. You might be able to find it, the ASIN and Rev Seller. I think Seller Amp might also show items that are out of stock. I'm not 100% sure on that one, though. There should be multiple ways to find it, though. Isabella, I do a lot of RA, and I want to hire local prep. Unfortunately, prep centers near me don't charge a flat fee. So I'm curious about it, because I think I've seen this question in another place, too. Do they not charge a flat fee, meaning it's $1.50 for a single unit, and it's $2.50 or $3 for bundles and multi-packs? Or is it you pay 80 cents for prep, and then 20 cents for a sticker, and then 25 cents for a poly bag? Because that makes a big difference to me. If it's the fact that they just charge differently for bundles than they do from singles, then I don't think you just need to keep those numbers in your head and add them to your sourcing. If it's the other way around, personally, I just don't think doing business with people who want a nickel and dime is the way to go. I would just never do business with that kind of prep center. But
and so if it's not a real wide range, it probably wouldn't hurt to just source under worst case scenario.
Absolutely.
It's only going to pad your numbers if it's not quite that expensive, right? I mean, unless you're talking like multi-packs or $1.50 per, so a six pack is $9 to prep or something like that. But if it's not ridiculous, try using worst case scenario.
Yeah. I know when we were doing a lot of RA and we did have a prep center, they did not charge just a flat fee either, which I understand. It takes more time to prep a 2-pack or a bundle than it takes to prep a single unit. I get it. Yep. So, I mean, I just kept the numbers in my head. It was at the time, this was a while ago, it was $1 for a single unit. It was $2 for multi-packs up to 6 units. And so I just said, okay, well, I'll add $1 here, I'll add $2 here, and I just put it in with my cost of goods sold.
I would kill for $2 on a 6-pack.
Right. Follow up. I have Keepa and I love it. Do they have a mobile app? Yes, absolutely. Please install that.
Are you able to link it within SellerAmp?
No, they use their own, I believe.
Okay. Because I know Scoutify 2, you can actually set up a custom button to go directly to Keepa within the Scoutify 2 app. That's how I do it.
Margie, Chris, I tried to reach out through Voxer about 10 days ago about a counterfeit without a test buy that I received. Never got a response. Since it was my first time ever using Voxer, is there a trick to using it that I should know? No. I mean, it's very possible you may have just put in the wrong username. Send me a DM on Facebook or an email at support@OA Challenge, and I'll make sure you have the right link. Unfortunately, I can't give it out here. You found a Marshalls that the UPC wasn't covered. No, a lot of Marshalls have the UPCs covered, but that's why you carry a Scotty peeler in your pocket. You do it for a couple of reasons. One, the metal Scotty peelers are a really great way to defend yourself in a street fight. Those things are sharp as all get out. But two, I pull back. I have no qualms about pulling back stickers to scan them.
Do you think we could recreate the Anchorman fight scene between all the news networks, but do it like Amazon seller street fight? Like, what kind of different weapons? Like, somebody have a Scotty peeler. Somebody, I don't know, if there was a long extension cord, maybe a heat gun or something. Like
Heat gun, absolutely.
The ridiculous weapons that we could come up with. Box cutters, of course.
Squirt some goog on in somebody's eyes. That would work, you know. When is the next OA challenge? Probably not going to be until September. We'll probably do one in September to kind of gear everybody up for Q4. What's your take on the Aura Maven AI? In my opinion, I'm a big fan. Now, I am. It's not quite fair because I happen to be good friends with Dylan, who's the co-founder. However, from everything that I've seen from on my end and from other people, it works very, very well. It gets sales above the buy box on a lot of occasions. And we did a podcast with Dylan talking about how it works. I also did one with Finn, who's the head of customer success over there. And we went deeper on how to use it properly. So I'm a big fan. And I've got a discount code, where you can get 20% off. They've also got their early adopter, I think is what they call it. But if you're selling less than 10 grand a month, you can take it for a test drive for $27 a month. Yeah.
For up to a year. Like that's
for up to
still
a year.
Incredible deal.
Yeah. For an LLC, do you use your real address? I was going to get a virtual address for wholesale purposes, but I was concerned about having issues with Amazon verification. For my LLC, I do not use my home address. Usually not too big of a deal. There's 8 variations. So this is a follow-up to the variation question. 5 of them have reviews. 3 of them do not show up with reviews. What should I do? They're all identical in Variation Wizard. Honestly, I don't have enough information to be able to answer you. So if you want to send it to me in a chat or in an email or something, I'd be more than happy to take a quick gander. Dale, the influencer program has been around for a little while now. I've been on the fence to join. Your thoughts? My thoughts is you should, if you're going to do it, you should do it now. Do it before. I mean, there are a lot of people already doing it. There are a lot of people making really good money with it. I think that there is still an opportunity there. I know some people think that it will become oversaturated. Sound like people who say that online arbitrage is dead. There is always going to be an opportunity there. And the reason I say that is the sheer amount of traffic that Amazon gets is insane. Billions of hits per month on Amazon. And yes, I think a lot of people try to go after the low-hanging fruit and find the stuff that, gets thousands and thousands of sales per month. I think there's probably always going to be opportunity for the long tail items, the higher dollar items that people aren't willing to buy, to do reviews on. And I think long term, that's where a lot of people will end up seeing money.
Yeah, and this is the ground floor. Ground floor of what? We don't necessarily know, but I mean, if word gets out enough and some dollar figures of what people are actually making with this, I mean, it's not hard to imagine like production values going up and people doing just really polished videos to try to kind of leapfrog the lower stuff. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, jump on it right now.
Yeah. I met a guy, and I can't say his name or anything like that, but I met a guy, and the last time I checked, he was doing $10,000 a month in commissions from the influencer program. And wow. They have a system, and it's X number of videos per day, 7 days a week, and they're just growing it.
That sounds too much like a job.
Right. Is it difficult to add a variation that is not in the catalog? The Variation Wizard doesn't have the size. Variation Wizard should also help you add that to the catalog. I have never done it. I don't want to do it. So I can't say how difficult it is, but I know some people say that it's usually pretty simple. Luke had to Google and find out Aju. Sorry, man. I've been spending a lot more time going down the rabbit holes of the younger generation's lexicon because my son says all this nonsense at dinner, and then I have to figure out what it means later on.
No cap.
Right. Do you have a coupon for Aura? Yeah, I believe it is code CTS. I get you 20% off for the first 3 months if you're over $10,000 a month in sales. Is going extremely wide the key to success with online arbitrage? Being more conservative is the key to scale instead of going very deep. Here's my opinion on this. There is more than one way to skin a cat. Okay. I know people who are very low on the number of ASINs that they have and very deep on those ASINs, and they do a great job. I know other people who are kind of middle of the road, and they'll go deep, when they can, but they also have maybe 100 or 150 ASINs. And then I know people who have 800 or 900 or 1,000 ASINs, and they're only buying 3 to 5 units on the average. There's not a wrong way. You just have to decide what way is best for me, and then you have to kind of like stick to the plan. Do I want to manage 700 different ASINs that I only sell 5 of every single month? Or do I want to fight out, 50-cent profits and sell 10,000 units a month? It just depends what you're into, in my opinion. All right. Went a little over today. Apologize about that, but we got a record number of people here, so I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Anything we missed today, Chris?
Dad joke of the week.
Oh, do you have one?
I don't. I was almost late showing up here. Like, well, this is not to get too graphic, but me and you we're both currently dieting, correct? You're still going?
Yes. Have you not been checking, man?
You didn't get back to me on whether we're doing another month or not. So,
Oh yeah, I'm all my notes are in our spreadsheet.
all right, I'll get caught up on the spreadsheet. Yeah, so we're both dieting, right? And it's, I don't know if this is maybe just my personal constitution or whatnot, but yeah, I eat a lot of the same stuff. It's all just very, very simple: yogurts, cheeses, nuts. Just eat like a jackass now. So, um, uh, but when I tend to introduce something I used to indulge in, it it could cause problems, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
I was almost late. I sorry, this is great. I was on the toilet, and I'm sitting there, and I just kept thinking, I don't have time for this shit.
That one's so much better than the one I've got. So much better. But since we're doing dad jokes, what do you call a group of fat babies?
What?
Heavy infantry.
Oh God, man.
Yeah, I know that one. It hurt to say. I'm sorry.
It does.
All right. That's it for this week, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends to keep yourself from getting regated in Nike. And we'll see you guys next week.